Are you ready? Okay. This building here was built in 1946, and it was my grandfather and my father went together. His name was Jack Edell, and they went and built this front building, which was 8,000 square foot. And then if you look at the end of this driveway, there's a big garage door there. That's a rear building, which is approximately 3,400 square foot. And that was constructed in 1954-55. So that's kind of what was going on here. And then you've got this building over here, 85 Steller Drive, because our building is 8501. That was originally a Lucky Lager beer distributor. And they used to have trucks leaving every day over Southern California, delivering beer to different markets and things like that. It also became later on Coors beer. Of course, it's all been redone, and it's all production type of offices now. And when you go over here next to the left of that building, used to be 20th Century Fox. They used to distribute all the candy, and popcorn was made there. They had huge machines that looked like washing machines that made bags and bags of popcorn, huge bags that they would take to the different Fox movie studios. And then beyond the back of this building, there's a railroad spur. Used to be railroad tracks that came in, and at one point there were no fences here, and a bunch of surplus came in, and they took our forklift over. This is before I was working, and unloaded all the surplus off of the railroad cars and brought it over here into the warehouse. And then there was another time where they won a bunch of bids after the war. There was so much surplus that none of these other buildings were here up and down the street, and they just piled the surplus on empty lots before the rest of these buildings were built. So that's kind of what happened here. Okay. See if that other key that you want me to explain to. Okay, we're back. All right, this was the main office for airborne sales. There was a reception area here. There were different various desks here with typewriters that the ladies typed up the orders. In this office here was, well, when my grandfather was alive, his desk sat right about here.
Jack.
That was Jack, and that's the desk that Jaime uses today at the surplus store. It's the same desk. And there was another desk over here, which is the desk I use at the surplus store. And somewhere in this floor, where this desk sat right there, there was, and the floor here is probably sealed up, but there was a little safe that was in the floor, and that's been covered over. So, yeah, and even actually behind here is a window that has been covered up. But you can see it from the outside of the building.
Whose desk was it there that you sit at now?
That was, well, it was several different people's desks. Emil was one of them. There were some other people that sat there over the years as well. Going to this room here, and there was a secretary that worked here, and there was another desk here, which is where my dad worked until his father passed away, and then he moved into that office. And when I was here, I worked at this desk. So, anyway.
So did you not work here with Jack?
No, well, not officially with official paycheck.
Just when you were younger?
Come down when I was younger, and he would have me do different things, but I wasn't on the payroll. He would just slip me a few bucks out of his own pocket. You know, you've seen pictures of this. I got videotape of this.
This is where John Jay and I used to ride the forklift.
Yeah, that was in the back there. Yeah, this was just full of surplus and different items. We had row after row of shelving and that in here. This was basically a mail order house, and we sold military aircraft parts mostly to people that were hobbyists that would make different things out of the old surplus aircraft parts. Some of the parts were new, some were used. And so we did that they did that from 1946, and then we closed this in 1984. So during the late 40s and in through the Korean War, they sold a lot of these parts back to the government. Once the Korean War started up, they needed the parts, and so they made a ton of money, and that's what ended up finishing the Korean War. Basically paid off the mortgage on this property. So after that, it really got more into, we would advertise in different magazines, boating magazines, Popular Mechanics, things like that, that would, more for hobbyists and things like that, to make different things out of the components that we sold. Just, you know, I mean, you've got video, you've got a disc of the videotape that I went and taped in here when this place was full.
Mm-hmm. Were those just more offices up there?
Well, tile is. Let's see where the tile goes. The tile goes in here. Okay, so. Okay, so there's no tile out there. Okay, so. This stretch goes all the way through to the wall of the building over there. And at one point in the 1950s, I'm going to say, probably for about 10 years, from 50 to 60, early 60s, they had an instrument shop, which they got a lot of instruments surplus, and it was called Avion Instrument and Repair Corporation. And it was an FAA-approved station for repairing aircraft instruments to put into aircraft. And my father, Bud, he worked there for a number of years doing that. They ended up, because they weren't making quite so much money with the instrument repair, and they ended up selling that off to someone. They bought that and moved it out of here and just continued on with regular surpluses, which, not the instruments, because they were making a lot more money selling general surplus than they were doing the instrument repair. Okay, so after the instrument shop closed, they ended up using this section and made it into a showroom of all the different products that we sold in a mail order catalog. And so...
Which were still primarily aircraft parts?
Correct, it was aircraft parts. And then, I don't know, you can see here, let's see, there was a doorway here which went into the showroom, and there was another doorway here which went over into this area, and this is where we used to, this was open, this didn't have a wall there, and it went down, and we had a room in the middle that we took our camera shots, and we had this room here which we had desks, and we, because everything was type stuff up, cut it and pasted on the boards back then. That was before all the computers did all that stuff. So we used to produce the catalog in this room and the next room over. And we used to put a new one out twice a year. We'd have one come out in January and then one come out in the fall. So we'd have it twice a year. We'd have updated prices and different items, new items that we got in, and deleted items we would delete out of the catalog.
So this wall, that far wall was not there, right? This one was always here?
Yes.
This was here, but this wall was not here.
Correct. That wall and this thing. Because you would come in, basically people came in and they went straight through to that door.
With the bubble door.
To the sales counter we had out there.
With the bubble glass.
Right. Correct.
Okay. All right.
And actually this, for years and years and years, this was sealed up. So if you wanted to come out here, you had to walk around. We ended up opening this up sometime in the late 70s. And it's really not wide enough for a regular door, but that's what we ended up doing.
The roofs were always like this, the ceilings?
The ceilings were always like this, and some, and some of where the higher areas are, we had stuff sometimes stacked to almost to touching the ceiling in here.
Wow.
We had it packed. The fire code said we needed 12 inches. We couldn't get any closer than 12 inches. So in a lot of this place, we had it stacked that high. We never used this door. It was always sealed up when I was here because we always had merchandise in front of it. But that door was used and this door was used before this rear building was put up in 54, 55.
That door there was used?
Yeah.
And this
those
one?
Two, yeah. And this was an open area where they stored surplus outside where they could park cars. At one point they had a stake bed truck that they used to go around and they would pick stuff up in the stake bed truck.
And this is where you remember driving in with your dad?
I remember driving, we drove down this alley and before these doors were in, the ceiling was on, we drove the car in here and stopped and we got out because this was under construction. It was almost finished.
Huh. What year was this part, Bill?
I'm trying to guess, 54, 55. I mean, there were, you know, I have to check, I guess, all permits or whatever. But
somewhere around
54, 55. Yeah.
This is where we rode on the forklift.
This is where the forklift normally was parked back here. This is where you guys would have ridden on the forklift.
And get all greasy. And then over there was where what we called the popcorn machine.
Right, correct.
Where we would put the styrofoam
yes.
stuffing.
Right, there
and play
was
with that.
The shelving that we have now at the surplus store in the back that Nacho uses, and that we have
in the receiving.
Receiving, those were all along that wall. That was the shelving that was there. That used to be in here. And then this over here we had this one it was just a small little garage door that used to go out and lift up and come down. And in 1995, Classic Party needed something that they could get forklifts and things out, so they ended up putting this much larger door in. We used to have some heavy power over here because we had some test equipment where we could test some of the aircraft generators that we had and load them up, put a load on them, make sure that they're functioning properly before we would sell them to somebody. We'd test them and make sure everything was okay. And this little panel over, see this little board over here? That had a 220, it had a, I don't know, I guess you could call it, it had a big lever that you could turn on and off, and basically it hooked up to, we had an air compressor here, so it ran the air compressor.
Is this the door you guys had put in?
This is not the door that we had. The door that was originally here was, even before my time, it slid open. It slid in two pieces, and half of it went to the right and half of it went to the left. And then sometime during the either late 60s or 70s, I was in the military. They came and had an aluminum garage door that went up, and you can see the traction still there. And it was a big aluminum door. And then at some point after 94 on, when Classic Party came, they put this big steel door in. And they also put in whatever that is, some type of power supply over there that wasn't here then. And I remember at one point, somewhere right in here, where this door was, at some point, I don't even know I'm trying to think of what year it was. I was really young then. Probably late 50s, I'm going to say, something like that. Your grandfather, your great-grandfather, I guess.
Jack?
No, Bud.
Oh, my grandfather.
They built a boat in here, and it was called Georgina, and it was a wooden one. I mean, a fancy all wood, and my dad and Cleve got this thing, I guess it was a kid or something, and they ended up building this thing right in here.
Hmm.
And then my father used to take it down for a few years. He took it down to Balboa. We spent a month down there.
Hmm.
And had it in the water down there.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, he ended up selling the boat because they were only using it like a month a year, so.
Oh.
He ended up selling the boat, and the money he got for the boat, they added onto the house up in Mountain View.
Hmm. Mountain View was your first house, right?
That's correct. They bought that. They moved into that house on Mountain View supposedly like a week or a few days before I was born. 1948. It was a brand new home.
And how old were you when you moved to Blair Hills?
I moved to Blair Hills. I think that was probably around 13, something like that. I was in Culver Junior High at that point. Yeah.
And then when did they move to Vinton?
They moved to Vinton in, let's say, 1965, probably. Yeah, I said 1965.
Because you were almost out of there.
Right, yeah, because I did my senior year living on Vinton. And they put the swimming pool in the backyard then.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
But, you know, like this driveway over here, we used to have the gate that locked. And this driveway over here, we've had a couple of gates that locked, so people couldn't get in there the way they can now.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Classic took those out, right?
yeah. Well, and actually, these people took theirs out, so if you don't have that,
It doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter.
Right.
Yeah. And these buildings look like they're all concrete, but it looks like it's tilt-up, but they're not tilt-up. It was actually poured, the cement was poured in place. They had forms over both sides, and they put the cement in the top and vibrated down so the cement would come down and level off.
Wow.
So it's concrete poured in place. It's not tilt-up. So,
Thank you.
okay.